Hey, Robin Wouters for Tech.eu. I'm here in Amsterdam. I'm here with Patrick from Startupbootcamp. What's Startupbootcamp?
Startupbootcamp is currently one of the most active accelerators outside of the US. So we help high potential startups that come from all around the world accelerate during our programs.
Where are you active now?
At this moment in Amsterdam, but also in Eindhoven, which is a little bit more south of the Netherlands, of Amsterdam. We are active in Copenhagen, in London, in Singapore, in Berlin, in Istanbul, and currently preparing some programs in the US and in China.
It's a very international operation, but there are lots of accelerators everywhere you go. Every region you turn to, there's tons of accelerators already active. So how do you make a difference?
So we've pivoted a few times, like most startups do. So we went from horizontal programs to vertical programs, which basically means that we focus on startups in a specific industry. So here in Amsterdam, we work with startups in E&M commerce. We're going to do the same thing in New York, same thing with fintech startups. We have them in London, we have them in Singapore, we're going to do that in New York. So we work very specifically in specific industries for startups, but also with corporate partners, with investors that are active in those verticals basically. And that's the way we differentiate. Next to this, we see working as an accelerator as a profession. We do this as a full-time thing. We've been entrepreneurs ourselves, we've had our successes, we had our failures, we really know what we're talking about. And this for us is more than a 24/7 basically activity. That's basically what we do, and that's the way we try to distinct ourselves from the competition.
Nice. You also said you were starting some programs in the US, which is traditionally where accelerators, well, most of the accelerators that most people know were born.
Yeah.
So that puts you on a spot with lots of established competition.
Yeah.
So how do you plan to make a difference there?
Yeah. We're going to what we call the lion's den basically. This is where it all started. And obviously we need to make a distinction on what is already there. I think with the focus on the verticals is really important. Next to this, what we've seen is that working with corporate partners is really crucial for the startups. They become the launching customers, they either have their venture fund, they invest in these startups. So we bring with us a lot of experience also from the corporate world. We build that bridge between startups and corporates. Next to this are specific verticals that we're going to launch in the US. We'll distinct ourselves from the activities that are already there.
So I already mentioned that we have a ton of accelerators worldwide. This is partly because we're currently in an upswing. Startups are hot, there's lots of money flowing into these young companies. What if the tide changes? What do you think will happen to the accelerator scene?
I think eventually there will be a few major players around the world with some local players. There will also be always some local players. Also, they might be funded with local money by governments and stuff like that. I think a lot of people underestimate what it means to run an accelerator program. It's very, very intensive. You work with 10 companies that you launch at the same time, with people from different cultures, you try to establish their business together with. I think eventually you will see that there will be less. How long this will take, it will highly depend also on the uptake on basically startups.
Right.
and the momentum that startups have. I think innovation, we've just seen the tip of the iceberg of innovation. And I think really the internet and technology in general has liberalized entrepreneurship. It's way easier to start a company today than it was when I started my first company when I was 15.
Right.
It's easier to have access to money, it's easier to more people are open-minded about being an entrepreneur. I do think, however, that on the other hand, it's being seen, launching your startup is being romanticized by a lot of people.
Yeah.
There's nothing romantic about it, I can tell you, You will probably work way harder in a startup than you will ever work in any other job. But on the other hand, running a startup is not a job. It's basically, it's something that you do with your gut, with your feeling, and private and business life is very much integrated like it has been with me. So let's see, I think there's still quite some runway, mostly on the innovation side and on the entrepreneurial side, and I think the best accelerators will eventually also be part of that growth path that will still follow.
Great answer. So as an accelerator, how do you measure success and how are you living up to that measurement?
Yeah. Well, success is something that you can look at it in many different ways. One of them is basically how do the startups that have gone through our programs, how do they evaluate us, and do we think that we actually have been able to help us? So every program we do a full evaluation, and actually the startups that participate in the program, they rate the accelerator. And that doesn't mean the accelerator program by itself, but also me. They rate the mentors, they rate the partners, they rate basically everything. if they basically rate us above an 8 and higher, basically I think we've been successful. That's the first measurement point that I do. The second one is basically, do we get the teams funded? Have we been able to create metrics that people believe in what the startups are doing, and have they increased basically the chances of success, and have they been growing? So have the startups actually been growing during the program? If they have been, and if they have the metrics for that, they will receive investment. If they will not, if they don't show any growth, they will not see any investments. At this moment we have a 94% investment rate, so basically that's the second way that I measure, are we sort of like successful? Then the next one is, do the valuations of these startups actually increase?
Right.
Well, we see that also. Obviously, we can measure that based on the investments that are made. And then fourth, it is how long do they survive? Do they, on average, survive longer and become successful faster than teams that don't go through an accelerator? And then the last one is, are they being exited? Which obviously in Europe will take way longer than in the US.
Yeah. So I think that the last point that you touch is very important, because ratings are fine, but they don't necessarily pay the bills.
No.
So what's it looking like in terms of exits for Startup Bootcamp?
Yeah.
What's this year going to bring?
So I think we've done four exits at this moment out of the 250 startups that we've done. These are teams from our first year, so we started in 2010. We will see coming some larger exits, as we can call them larger. For us, at least, they feel a little bit larger than the first ones, and they will happen in the next 6 to 12 months. So some of the exits are currently being prepared. And we see that there's a lot of activity, not only from inside of Europe, but mostly also from the Asian. So we see that the Asian part of the world, that there are actually investors and corporate Asian companies looking into Europe to acquire early stage companies. Actually more than from the US.
Great. Well, we'll keep watching. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.